I just arrived in Windhoek, Namibia, and this might be the chillest and oddest capital city I've ever visited. There's legit nobody here. Where is everything? Where are the people? This is so weird.
What do you mean you don't know that it's your people that made it look the way it looks? And by the way, this is a topic that we actually need to have a conversation about, because I don't think young white people of this generation get taught about how their ancestors traumatized people.
So I'm in this town right now on the coast of Namibia that looks identical to Germany. Welcome to Swakopmund. Walking through this city is a surreal sight. Like, this for real looks like any other town in Germany. But we're all the way in frickin' southern Africa. But there is a reason this place looks so German. Swakopmund was built up during Namibia's time as a German colony, way back in the early 1900s, as it was a key port town. But even after losing the colony in World War I, much of the German vibe and architecture stuck around. This feels more German than some of Germany.
Did you know that most of the land in Namibia is still owned by foreigners, and Germans in particular? The beautiful landscape and the surrounding mountains that you see here are all part of a 32,000 hectare big farm owned by a single German family. That is the size of Munich or Disneyland in Orlando, Florida, and this is just one single farm out of many you'll find across the country. Starting from the Namibian-South African border up to Namibia's capital, Windhoek, you will see that the land left and right is fenced. These are all private farms. During my travels through Southern Africa, I learned that the descendants of the settlers who own most of the farms have inherited so much wealth, they have not even spent the money their grandfathers have left behind. I always admired Africans for being able to forgive what has been done to them during slavery and colonialism, for being the most welcoming countries in the world, even embracing descendants of colonizers as part of their nation. But witnessing with my own eyes that their country's independence has not ended the dispossession of their land, and racist views some settlers still carry on in the present towards them, left me with so many questions, especially with the question, are we maybe too forgiving? What do you think? Let me know in the comments. This girl is questioning if the land belongs to native Namibians. This video has me seeing red. Please watch it.
I'm from Namibia, born and raised. They want the land back? How? Sorry, but that's just, I mean, really? It's not even their land. If they wanted their land, then they should have done something 100 years ago. And who's to say that the land originally even belonged to them? For all we know, there were people before them there who they took the land from. So
the audacity and entitlement alone from settlers, not only in this video, not only in Namibia, but around the world, is quite despicable, laced with the lack of understanding and empathy, driven by pure ignorance and, let's face it, racism. And it's quite telling. Because the number your ancestors did, I mean, enslaving, we just say colonization, but that's what it means, right? And your lack of understanding to truly understand that and to be huffing and puffing in a video like this, don't get me started.
But you even go to Namibia. Listen, Namibia, and this was not even part of this topic. Namibia, right? The place is owned by Germans, really. So you enter Namibia from Southern Africa, you look on the left and you look on the right, you're on the road, it's fenced up. And who are the people who are here? These are Germans, to the point that they even have German ceremony, beer drinking events and stuff. But the people of Namibia themselves, they're oppressed. All their land has been taken. And where some of these people's bodies are till tomorrow morning, we will never know, because those Germans that are there will never let the people come in to see.
We gotta talk about what happened in Germany, because at an official press conference, the speaker was confronted by a journalist with a very simple question. Do you think what Germany did to Namibia is justifiable? I've reposted the most important part of this entire press conference, but this guy is called Hinterseher. And in case you do not know, Germany committed a genocide in the early 1900s in what nowadays is Namibia. But back then, that was a German colony. The genocide was against the Herero and the Nama people. The lives of over 100,000 people were systematically taken by the Germans. And all because the colonized people, the oppressed people, dared to attack their oppressors, the Germans. Before this genocide, around 1,000 Germans were targeted and their lives were taken. Now, Germany only has recognized this genocide around a decade ago. And a lot of curriculums don't really teach about it. I know about it because in school I had a very good history teacher. How is all of this connected to this press conference? Well, in this press conference, the journalist says to Hinterseher, right before this genocide against the Herero and the Nama people began, the lives of 1,000 Germans were taken. And then he continues on to say, do you think this massacre was a justification for genocide? And the journalist even goes further and says, especially when you look at Germany's stance right now when it comes to what is happening in Gaza, because as we all know, Germany has, continuously justified the genocide of the Palestinian people again and again and again. Only now our chancellor has actually said a line has been crossed. Now, in May of 2025. And we all know why they keep, justifying it. They're saying, oh, see what happened to these people. See what happened in October. So this journalist asked a valid question. You're saying that, what happened in October justifies what is happening in Gaza right now. Does that mean you also believe that what happened in Namibia, these 1,000 Germans losing their lives, justifies the genocide Germany has recognized in Namibia? Hinterseher then says he does not think it's okay to, compare the past with the present. I don't know about you, but when I was in school in Germany, the one thing I learned was always learn from the past, make comparisons to see that you're not repeating the horrific behavior of Germans in the past. Learn from the past, know history. But I guess now Hinterseher wants to, completely disconnect the past from the present. Now we should not learn from the past. And the journalist even goes on, he's like, but that is why, genocides are being studied. So we learn from what people in the past did and we don't repeat that behavior, but now you want to ignore it? And then he also says, Germany multiple times when it comes to justifying what is happening in Gaza keeps saying, oh, look at what happened in October, look at what happened in October. Do you think the German government would also try to justify what happened to the Herero and the Nama people in Namibia by always referring to what happened to the 1,000 Germans? Hinterseher just says, I already said what I said. And the journalist then says, so you're not going to deny it. Then somebody else chimes in and asks the journalist, is that, what you actually wanted to talk about? Did you tell people that you were going to ask this? I know I talk very badly about a lot of journalists because I believe a lot of journalists do not have any type of backbone. They're sellouts. That is not just my opinion, that is a fact. So it is very refreshing to see that good journalists actually still exist and they make these people so uncomfortable. You could see it in the face of the guy. He was very uncomfortable with that question. Mind you, Germany also stayed silent when Namibia actually also called this out. They released an official statement saying, how can you as a country support what is happening when you're at the same time, condemning what you guys did to us? How can you say that you are sorry for committing a genocide in Namibia while you colonized us, while you took our land, while you oppressed us, the indigenous people of this land, and then go ahead and support a country that's doing the exact same thing? And Germany once again completely ignored it, like they ignore a lot of things. Because God forbid you recognize that Germany has actually never changed. They didn't change after the genocide against the Herero or the Nama people. They didn't change after the genocide against the Jewish people. And not just Jewish people, but everybody who did not fit in their worldview in the 30s and the 40s. Let's not forget that the first people targeted by that regime were politicians who did not believe in what that man wanted back then. They targeted queer people, they targeted disabled people, they targeted countless other ethnic minorities in different countries. And even right now, Germany's still not changing. They're still openly supporting a genocide. They're celebrating it, they're inviting those politicians here, they're shaking hands with them, they're smiling at them, actively silencing people who are against a genocide in Germany, which is crazy. They're also silencing Jewish people in Germany, or Jewish people who want to come to Germany. I talked about this in the past. A survivor of what Germany did in the past wanted to come to Germany, Hamburg to be more specific, the city she had to flee from as a child, give a speech, and during that speech she wanted to condemn what Germany is also doing right now and what that country in the Middle East is also doing right now. She was not allowed to have her speech. I need journalists to continue this way, make these people as uncomfortable as you possibly can, and make sure that all of this is documented. Make sure they cannot escape from what they have said. Make sure they're being held accountable.
So I saw someone say, why don't they ever teach African history in our schools? And I had to pause, because it's not that they can't teach it, it's that they don't want to, especially when it makes Europe look like the monster that it really was. So let me put you on to something you probably didn't learn in school. Germany's first genocide didn't happen in Europe. It happened in Africa. The year was 1904. Germany had colonized what we now call Namibia. And when the Herero and Nama people resisted, not violently, just refused to be erased, Germany responded with brutality that'll make your stomach churn. They poisoned wells. They pushed entire communities into the desert and cut off their access to food and water. They built death camps. They chained people up, used them for forced labor and medical experiments. even beheaded them and shipped their skulls back to Berlin, all in the name of research. Not as evidence of war crimes, but trophies. Sound familiar? Because it should. Germany tested their genocidal playbook on African soil before the Holocaust, and then they exported that same cold, calculated violence to Europe decades later. But nobody talks about that, likely because Black pain isn't considered historic. It's considered disposable. And don't let anybody tell you this was a long time ago. Germany didn't even acknowledge what had happened until 2021. And their apology came with no real reparation, just a PR stunt and a press release. They still haven't returned all the stolen bones. They haven't paid back the families that lost generation. They still haven't put this genocide in German textbooks. And the US, silent. Because when the West says never again, they really mean never again to white people. But when you ask why African history isn't taught, they can't teach you the truth without admitting that they're still protecting the people that committed the crimes. Germany practiced genocide in Africa. They perfected it, then pretended like it started in Europe. We're not supposed to remember, we're supposed to move on. But memory is resistance. And I'm here to say their silence doesn't protect them anymore.
And here you are in 2025, acting stupid, saying, oh my God, this is so empty here. Like, do people live here? No, they don't. You know why they don't? Because your people unalived these people so bad that you cannot find 1 million people on a land of 200 acres.
All right, what if I told you that this town, literally being swallowed by the desert, used to be one of the richest towns in Africa? This is Kolmanskap, Namibia, and it was built on diamonds. It was dripping with money and wealth and a dark history of violence and colonization. So it all began in 1908 when a railway worker, because there was a railway going through there, discovered a little glittering thing in the sand. And he showed his supervisor, and his supervisor immediately gave the railway worker, of course, no credit and snapped up his mining rights. Now, I should have mentioned these were German railway workers, so immediately when this happened, the diamond rush began, and these Germans declared this a forbidden zone. Diamond area number 1. By 1909, 500,000 carats were being mined there in a year. And in the next 5 years, that swelled to 1.5 million carats. But look, Kolmanskap was not some dusty mining town. It was like a mirage of European luxury just dropped in the middle of the Namib desert. It had everything. Operas, ballrooms, theaters. It had the first X-ray machine in the southern hemisphere. It had a power station running off distilled seawater. There's even like a sausage shop and a bakery. Everything, of course, had to be brought in from really far away by mules or railway. And of course, the richest families there built their homes atop the hills to avoid the worst sandstorms. But in 1928, this is when the fall started to happen. They discovered diamond fields elsewhere, further south. And this just didn't hold this diamond monopoly in Africa. They had mining elsewhere, and then by 1950, mining operations just stopped. So then by 1956, Kolmanskap was essentially abandoned. So now this place kind of just exists as a dark reminder of the violent colonialist past that existed here in the German minority that held on to all of the wealth while the indigenous laborers got exploited. And if you're trying to go see it, it might be tough. You need a permit, yada, yada, yada.
I'm in the absolute middle of nowhere in the Namibian desert, but I am so confused. Why is there a USSR rocket ship in the desert? Like, there has got to be an explanation behind this. Update, I just asked, and there is no explanation. There's just a Russian rocket ship here.
Let's talk about Namibia, the African country that suffered apartheid without ever being part of South Africa. Most people don't know this, but Namibia was ruled by South Africa for decades. It started after World War I, when the League of Nations gave South Africa a mandate to look after it. But instead of care, they brought control. And when apartheid started in 1948, they didn't just keep it in South Africa, they exported it to Namibia. Namibians lived under pass laws, forced removals, zero citizenship, and no political voice, all while technically being a separate country. Colonialism stacked on top of apartheid, and it lasted until 1990, a year before Mandela's release. This part of history barely gets mentioned, but it matters because Namibia's story shows how far apartheid reached and how long the struggle for freedom really lasted. This is the Africa you're not shown, but I'm here to show you.